Hello, in this video I would like to show you some examples of how we could use web components to build our information systems a bit more easily. So web components is an emerging web standard about how to make custom HTML elements. So for not being too abstract, I'll just start with an example. So on the left here, that's my HTML file that I enriched with my web components. So this script file contains the code implementing the examples I'll use in that demo. And on the right, this is the same file opened in my browser. So this is some just text file. This is a text editor, and it runs on my browser. So this thing here, widget smiles viz, is visualizing a molecule and using the smile string here. So now if I refresh my page, I get the molecule. So that's obviously not out of the box HTML. It has been developed, and now I can reuse it simply by passing a string here. I don't need to know what happens inside and how the visualization happens actually. Now let's see another example. This one takes a compound name as an attribute and connects to the OpenFacts web API and displays some data. There it is. As you can see, web components are a lot about code reuse. It's a little bit like the service-oriented architecture, allows you to share functionalities without having other developers understand the inner complexity of your application. Except that now here it happens on the front end of your web application, directly in the HTML file. So if we want to use this to share code across developers, I think some conventions or at least categorization of web components can help so that we can know what we can expect of the components. So to do that, I've just as an initial thought on the subject, I've created a category which is called the constructor here. So these two are constructors. They do stuff on your page. You put them in your HTML and they will display something. It could be raw text, it could connect to a remote API, do something on its own, draw graphics, draw interactive widgets, or even write back to a database. In contrast, the second category, which I called the container, so let me show you an example here. I'll remove this for the moment. The container don't do anything on their own. So if I refresh the page here, nothing happens. It's quite similar to the other one. It takes aspirin as a parameter. But here, what it does instead of creating things on its own is that it enriches the space that is between the boundaries of this markup. And here, within that place here, between these two things here, I can now use a special syntax to access data attributes or functionalities from this container element. So one example is simply displaying data. So here I put a div where I say, okay, I want the toxicity from drug bank, and I want the description. Now if I refresh the page, I get toxicity first and then the description. And I can mix it with my own HTML. So I can say this will be bold. That's not nice HTML, sorry for the web developers. I can mix it with my own HTML. So as you can see, you can use the components to enrich an existing application or build it from scratch as you want, or anything in between actually. So amongst the containers, we can have subcategories. So this one item is basically giving you access to some data for one item. You just pass an identifier here. I can have another one here which is called list. And as you might expect, it's creating a list. So the difference with the item is that it repeats things. So here it's using another OpenFacts service which gives you the pharmacology for a given compound. So still aspirin here. So you still have this item parameter here. What's new is that you can have, for example, filtering parameters. So here I want only information about potency. And you have this repeat element here that says that everything here will be repeated once per item. So here I'm just displaying a table So this is normal HTML, the table here. TR means that it's a row and TD is the cell. So you can see that each row will be repeated once per item in what OpenFacts returns here, and we draw 4 cells with these different attributes. So now if I refresh, I get my table. And again, I can now mix it with my own HTML to style it the way I want. So you can also nest things. So an example, let me show you this one. So if I go back to my item element, one of the attributes that I get back is this smile strings that we used to draw the molecule. So what I can do is this. So I can display just the smile strings here as text, but I can also pass it now to another component, which is a constructor component. So this widget smiles means that we have seen before. And now if I refresh the page, I get the string and the visualization. So you can see it's simple, but it can be pretty powerful, because now I can programmatically change this, and now I want imatinib, which is glivec. I refresh it, and now I see glivec. So that's it. So if we think about it now, this is code reuse, so it helps us make our development of information systems faster and more consistent. But what's really interesting here for me is that if you look at this code here, there is actually no code. There is no programming language, no logic, no algorithm. It's purely descriptive. You say, okay, I want a compound. I want it to be imatinib. I want to show the smile strings, and I want to draw the molecule. So you don't need to be a software engineer to do that. And the same way anyone can build a web page, now with this kind of web components, anyone can write a data-driven web page, and that makes things much more powerful. And that allows us as information systems professional to really focus on the data API, like this OpenFacts API that allows me to get this data, and to build these reusable components, and then hand this over to the end users themselves and let them build their reports and their information system how they want. You know, that guy who is doing Excel macros and look at the VBA code and tweak it, he can really do that as well. So of course not all of them will do that, but in every group you will have 1 or 2 people who will like to do that, and then put them in their SharePoint sites or share them with their colleagues and so on. So that's beyond just the productivity and consistency gain. That could really be a game changer, I think, for information systems in the next years, and we should start thinking about it and get prepared for it. As a conclusion, I also would like to say that with this categorization of web components that I described, and the fact that they are simply text running in your browser, that also opens up a new world of possibilities for software that allow end users to combine these web components and build applications, not by typing HTML here in text editor, but with proper UIs. And I'll show in another video an example about this, which is about a wiki enriched with these web components, which tries to bring the best of both worlds. So just write your article in a wiki like you like, and benefit from computing power of backend information systems to really mix both aspects, so the automatically generated content and the manually generated content. Yeah, so that's it. I'll put the link to the other video in the description, and I've also made a document describing this a bit more formally and with more details that I will also share in the description. So thanks for your attention.